Secure disposal and media sanitization exist to remove data safely when assets reach the end of their useful life, because data does not disappear just because a system is retired.
Storage media remembers far more than people expect, and that residual data can be recovered long after devices leave active service if disposal is careless. From a security perspective, retirement is a risk moment, because controls that protected data during operation may no longer apply once assets are staged, shipped, or recycled. Proper disposal planning ensures that information remains protected until it is rendered irretrievable. When this discipline is missing, organizations can lose control of sensitive data at the very moment they believe the risk is gone. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to the CISS books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Disposal planning begins with accurate inventory, clear ownership, and correct classification of media, because you cannot sanitize what you do not know exists. Inventory identifies what assets contain storage, including servers, endpoints, removable media, appliances, and embedded components that are easy to overlook. Ownership clarifies who is responsible for approving disposal and verifying completion, preventing assets from drifting through informal channels. Classification determines how sensitive the data may be, and therefore how strong the sanitization method must be. When these elements are aligned, disposal becomes a controlled process rather than an ad hoc cleanup activity. Sanitization methods are typically grouped into categories that reflect increasing strength, commonly described as clearing, purging, and physical destruction. Each category serves a different risk profile and reuse scenario, and choosing appropriately prevents both underprotection and unnecessary cost. Lower-risk reuse may only require logical removal, while higher-risk media demands methods that resist laboratory-level recovery. Understanding these categories allows teams to apply consistent standards across the organization instead of improvising per device. Consistency is critical because uneven handling creates blind spots attackers can exploit. Clearing is the least aggressive approach and focuses on logical removal of data so media can be reused in lower-risk contexts. This typically involves overwriting storage locations or resetting devices to remove user-accessible data. Clearing assumes that basic software-based methods are sufficient because the media will remain under organizational control or within a trusted environment. It is not appropriate when media leaves control or contains highly sensitive information. Clearing is effective only when combined with verification that the overwrite or reset completed successfully. Without verification, clearing becomes an assumption rather than a control. Purging applies stronger techniques designed to protect against more advanced recovery attempts, including cryptographic erase and degaussing. Cryptographic erase works by destroying encryption keys so that remaining data is computationally inaccessible, which can be effective when full disk encryption was implemented correctly. Degaussing disrupts magnetic fields to render magnetic media unreadable, though it also destroys the media's usability. Purging is appropriate when reuse is possible but risk tolerance is low, or when regulatory requirements demand higher assurance. The key is ensuring the method matches the media type and the threat model, because a mismatched technique can provide false confidence. Physical destruction is the most definitive method because it renders media unusable through shredding, crushing, or similar mechanical processes. Once destroyed properly, data recovery becomes impractical, regardless of attacker capability. Destruction is often required for highly sensitive data or when media leaves organizational custody permanently. It also simplifies assurance, because the result is visually and physically verifiable. However, destruction must still be controlled and documented, because uncontrolled destruction can mask theft or substitution. Even when destruction is chosen, chain of custody and verification remain essential. Solid-state media introduces unique challenges because wear leveling and remapped blocks can prevent traditional overwriting from touching all data locations. Flash-based storage may retain data in cells that are not directly addressable by standard software commands. As a result, sanitization methods must account for these characteristics, often favoring cryptographic erase or physical destruction over simple overwriting. Assuming that methods effective for magnetic disks apply equally to solid-state media is a common mistake. Proper handling requires understanding how the storage technology manages data internally. Cloud storage disposal shifts the problem from physical media to logical data handling and key management. Deleting objects alone may not be sufficient if copies persist in backups, replicas, or caches beyond immediate visibility. Effective disposal includes understanding provider deletion behavior, retention policies, and backup life cycles. Managing encryption keys becomes central because destroying keys can render remaining data unreadable even if physical storage persists. Cloud disposal requires coordination between technical teams and contractual controls to ensure data is actually rendered inaccessible according to expectations. Chain of custody remains important during disposal because media often moves through multiple hands and locations before final disposition. Tracking movement from active service to staging, transport, and destruction prevents loss, substitution, or unauthorized access. Each transfer should be documented with time, handler, and location to preserve accountability. Without custody tracking, a missing device may go unnoticed until long after the opportunity to respond has passed. Chain of custody ensures that disposal is not just planned, but executed securely from start to finish. When vendors are used for disposal or destruction services, additional controls are required to maintain assurance. Sensitive media must be transported securely with tamper-evident packaging and documented handoff procedures. Vendor processes should be reviewed to confirm they follow appropriate sanitization standards and access controls. Blind trust in third-party disposal is a common failure point because the organization remains responsible for the data even after handing over the asset. Verification and oversight extend internal controls beyond the organization's walls. Certificates of destruction or sanitization provide formal evidence that actions were completed as required. These certificates typically identify the media, the method used, the date, and the responsible party. While a certificate alone does not guarantee proper execution, it creates an auditable record that supports accountability and compliance. Certificates should be matched to inventory records to ensure completeness. When properly managed, they close the loop between planning and proof. Environmental and safety rules also influence disposal methods because media destruction and recycling must comply with applicable regulations. Some materials require specialized handling to prevent environmental harm, while others must be processed through approved recycling channels. Compliance with these rules does not replace security requirements, but it must be integrated with them. Secure disposal that violates environmental law introduces a different kind of risk that can be just as damaging. Coordinating security and environmental considerations ensures disposal is both safe and lawful. Access control during staging and transport is often overlooked, yet it is a critical phase where assets are vulnerable. Retired devices may sit temporarily in storage areas or loading docks before destruction or shipment. If access is not restricted, these areas can become easy targets for theft or tampering. Applying access controls, logging, and supervision during this period closes a common gap between active use and final disposal. Secure handling must extend through every intermediate step. Secure disposal ultimately prevents recoverable data from leaving organizational control, which is the true objective of sanitization. Whether through clearing, purging, destruction, or cloud-specific controls, the method chosen must match data sensitivity and threat reality. Inventory accuracy, custody tracking, vendor oversight, and documentation transform disposal from an afterthought into a defensible process. When disposal is handled with the same rigor as active security controls, organizations avoid one of the most preventable forms of data loss. In the end, disciplined sanitization ensures that retired assets do not become future liabilities. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.